But let's take a look at that Georgia offense. Kirby Smart spoke about Mike Bobo and Carson Beck. A little bit of a slow start, and I don't know if you want to blow it up in anything bigger than that. It's just game one. But what did y'all notice about this offense compared to what Todd Monken was doing last year?
Didn't play well, which is, don't know that that's all that unique when you look at the type of opponent. I went back and looked, and I don't know why when I just said that I felt like I sound like Rusty, because Rusty says that a lot, I feel like. But I went back and looked, and did you realize that bad first half of football was Georgia scored more points than it did in its two bad halves of football against Samford and Kent State last year? That total was 16 points. Georgia scored 17 in the first half yesterday. Listen, I'm under no delusions that I think Georgia's offense is just as good as it was last year, especially not with Lab McConkey out, especially not with Dejon Edwards out, especially not in Carson Beck's first game. Did Georgia kind of wear them down a little bit and then start kind of gashing them more? Yeah. Okay. I'm with you there. But I don't think that anything vanilla as far as a game plan is an excuse. I think Georgia should have played better, and it didn't. And that's just kind of water under the bridge. And I understand folks being concerned. I probably studied this game harder, Wes, than I have, at least sooner than I have any Georgia game in a very long time. Like, I was up early this morning watching this thing again, watching it again. Did our X's and O's thing today instead of Tuesday. Probably going to try to do that all year long, get it done on Sunday. So come on over to DawgsHQ and check that out. Because I had concerns. I was like, hey, what was wrong? And when I went back and watched it, I wasn't nearly as alarmed. I saw some creativity. I saw proof of creativity. I saw proof of building on the concepts that Todd Monken has implemented at Georgia, or did implement at Georgia last year. And I saw a team that just didn't play all that great. Not really focused, a lot of mistakes, missed blocks. And there's a lot of stuff that I don't know about. Like, let's say that play before the half. I don't know whose call that was or what went wrong there. What I do know is it just didn't work, and you coach off of it, you teach off of it, you learn from it, and you move forward. And I think you got to have confidence that you've got a head coach that knows how to do that.
How much do you attribute, Jake, to just first game? I mean, that's which is I mean, it's a real thing. Whether or not people want to accept that, the machine Georgia is, right. I mean, there are transitions. There are new guys coming into these spots. How much of this is just it's what it is? It's the first game of a brand new season and new people, and knocking rust off for some of the old faces and breaking in some of the new guys too.
Well, I mean, that's hard, because they looked so good last year in that first game. How much of that was Oregon playing like crap? You look back on that. I mean, Georgia has nothing to defend itself from last year. Okay. It went 15-0 and won a national championship. So nobody can't nobody tell Georgia nothing from last year. But did Oregon just kind of play crappy and Georgia played well? I think that was the main thing, is Georgia played well last year. And listen, you had a lot of guys, a lot of experience coming back at key positions. And yesterday, I feel like Georgia had a lot of inexperience back at key positions. Inexperience at left tackle, inexperience at quarterback, inexperience at two wideout positions, especially in this offense. Inexperience a little bit at tailback. A tailback in Kendall Milton that Kirby Smart estimated was going at 90%. Your first play of the season is to Mekhi Muse, who had a really good game. But, I mean, who drew that one up, right? Who had that one in the back of their mind? So I think ultimately they're ready. They just didn't play well, and they tended not to play well in games like this last year. And but when that time came last year, when they played poorly against Samford last year, you had the Oregon game to fall back on, and when they played poorly against Kent State, you had the Oregon and Kent State game. You had the Oregon and South Carolina games to fall back on. You don't really have that this year. So I think the unknown is what's bothering a lot of people.
So this may be an oversimplification, but last season, Kirby's remarks to SEC Media Days, we won't be hunted. And they go out and dominate Oregon, and they lived up to that mantra. Now this year is better never rests. And from what we heard about camp and how grueling it was, and how much leadership and connection this team has and how athletic they are, part of me wondered, did they rest a little bit in that first half after such a tough fall camp? And then in the second half, they showed what they were capable of and started to step on the gas a little bit. I think it could be a factor here where it's UT Martin, maybe not as much ramp up to play. And we did see Georgia's offense not look as great in those overmatched opponents last year. But if we know anything about Kirby and what he said, he's not going to rest until Georgia can figure out how to make it look even better, because he was visibly upset. And even in his post-game remarks, he said the same thing. He wanted to see more competition out of his guys to start this one.
Yeah, I don't think it's about rest personally. If anything, I would say that Carson Beck felt to me like he was not resting very well at all. He didn't seem very comfortable in the beginning of it. I think that, there were a couple of checkdowns, probably not as many as people remember. Jake went and broke those plays down over at the message board at DawgsHQ, so go check that out. But it wasn't as many as people remember. He missed a couple of throws long, but I think that there probably were some nerves from him. And so, if that's the mantra this year, he wasn't resting, but I don't know that was to his benefit in this instance. It may have been a little anxiety driven for him, and it felt like it got a little bit better, as things progressed. And that's what you want to see. Carson Beck, you probably weren't going to get the full picture in game one, but I think it was going to be a process all along. And I at least kind of expected that. I don't know that I expected it to maybe feel as, I did feel that it was pedestrian at sometimes against UT Martin. But I think that's probably just a byproduct. Like I said earlier, that's why I asked you, Jake, because to me, it felt like it was some of those early season jitters. It was like new guys kind of getting their feet under them and doing it against somebody that's not their own teammates.
Here's one thing I point to is if Carson Beck was going to have one of those kind of squeezing the life out of the football type games and maybe look a little bit nervous and timid with the ball, this was the one to do it, because Mike Bobo can show him that film and he can say, hey man, listen, do you see when you came into this TCU game last year, see when you came in the South Carolina game last year and some of these other games where you played really well, watch how you played football in those games and watch how you played football in this one early when you were kind of timid and nervous and tight with the football. You were a different player. And now I need you to go out there and show me what you can play like whenever you kind of cut it loose a little bit. And the funny thing is it was mentioned in the broadcast. Like Aaron Murray said it in the broadcast. It's one of the reasons I've gotten to where I really do like going back, because they do get some access, that we don't get. And Aaron Murray said that Mike Bobo, in talking to Mike Bobo, and if Bobo is going to come off some info, he'll come off of it to the best quarterback he probably ever coached at the college level. He said, hey, listen, I don't want him to go out there and try to be perfect. I want him to go out there and, turn it loose and have fun. Well, he didn't do that yesterday until later on. And I do think he did that. And again, I know that Georgia probably had worn UT Martin out a little bit, but I don't know. I think that Carson Beck can get better with just a few mental adjustments. I don't think it's going to take wholesale changes and all this stuff. And somebody brought it up a minute ago. I, too, thought Carson Beck looked pretty good in the pocket. Now, did he want to sling it downfield and did he air it out? And was he accurate as you would want him to be with some of those deeper throws? No. And that's stuff that I think he can fix. But in terms of, being scared, being worried when he got a little pressure, not at all. I mean, he got a pressure two or three times. He reacted to it extremely well. He's going to face better pressure than that down the road. But I thought he did some good things, and I thought he did some things that folks should kind of still have questions about. But I go back to the story I wrote whenever Carson Beck was named the starter, guys. Stetson Bennett. If you'll all look in the mirror and think about how you used to talk about Stetson Bennett, okay? All right, don't be hypocrites on me here. But if you all look in the mirror, Stetson Bennett didn't always have the it factor either. Like, there was a time where every big game Stetson played in, he didn't play that great.
Stetson Bennett, in the eyes of many people, didn't have the it factor after he won the national championship.
Yeah, the first one.
Yeah, that's what
I'm
saying.
So much so that they were angry he came back.
Yeah,
they were ready
right,
to turn the page to Carson Beck already.